You're listening to Be Well by Kelly LeVeque.
Well, thank you so much for coming to our second live podcast for Be Well by Kelly. Dr. Morgan Cutlip has been on the podcast a couple of times, and that's because I lean on her expertise in all things mental load. She's the author of 2 books. Her latest is A Better Share, talks all about the mental load that parents have. And her previous book is Love Your Kids Without Losing Yourself. So that navigates how to take care of yourself, have self-care without the guilt. And I think both of those books really can support us throughout this holiday season. So today's talk is going to be all about how we can learn to manage everything that we're carrying into the holidays and to really do it joyfully without the overwhelm. So, Morgan, thank you so much for being here for a 3rd, 4th time. You're my absolute favorite guest, a dear friend. She's a mom, a baseball mom, a San Clemente mom, local. You've probably seen her at Mops or Momco. This is her hard work, and I'm so grateful to have her. Thank you for being here.
I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you for having me, and thank you for welcoming me into your community. So it means a lot.
Well, yeah, we need you. So thank you for being here. So let's jump right in. I'd really love some strategies on how to lighten the mental load, especially around the holidays. I don't want to be bah humbug. I really want to find the joy and do it with ease.
Yeah, not a small task, right? So part of what makes the holiday season so incredibly overwhelming is because the amount of tasks on our plate sort of explodes exponentially during the season. We have a lot more factors to consider, a lot more on our schedules, probably a lot more school events, more communications, family dynamics. So I say all this because sometimes the women understand why it feels a lot fuller, but sometimes their partners are like, you need to just take it easy. Why are you so stressed? Just do less this year. We're like, we can't do less. We're creating magic. So it's really overwhelming for us, and it's important to just say that's normal. That's a common experience. So in terms of lightening the load, one of my biggest pieces of advice is to talk about it early with your partner. Come up with a plan. The reality is probably we're already planning for the holidays. Like I started shopping. Many of you started shopping. So we're already in the mode of preparing. And what I see happening time and time again is that partners come in like at the last minute and they're like, what can I do? And at that point you're like, I've done everything. You don't get to steal my thunder. So it's important to talk early so you can divide and conquer. Make a list. Talk about everything you gotta do, decide who's gonna do what, and this is gonna preserve you from future resentment around the holiday season towards your partner because you felt like they didn't carry their weight. Something else that can be really helpful is to also come up with an anchor for the holiday season. So a lot of times, we just can get really swept away by all of the magical things we want to create for our kids and the experiences and what we want it to feel like for them that we burn ourselves out. And we end up doing so much by the time Christmas or whatever holiday rolls around, we're like, we don't even enjoy it at this point. So think about 1 to 2 things that you really want to focus on this holiday season. Maybe it's, I want to feel like, there's more joy, or maybe it's really practical, like, I want to play more family games this holiday season. But come up with 1 to 2 things and really kind of use that as something that grounds you when you start to let those expectations kind of carry you away and go a little bit too far.
I love the idea of more family games. What is your advice for making sure that happens and that anchor, we follow through on that anchor?
Well, if you pull your partner into it and you're both navigating this together, you can hold one another accountable. But I think really it's just like, if that is the focus for the holiday season, if you create it down, whittle it down to 1 to 2 things, then it doesn't feel so overwhelming to accomplish. We're not like, okay, we have to do hot chocolate, golf cart rides, we gotta go see the lights on bikes, we gotta do this, we gotta do that. If we can whittle it down to 1 to 2 things that we really wanna focus on, it becomes a lot more attainable.
My new amino acid supplements come in flavorless and lemon water, and they're flying off the shelves, and here's why. I have meticulously sourced these vegan fermented essential amino acids from Japan. I am so proud of this being made the Be Well way, with maximum quality and minimum ingredients. My flavor list is simply those vegan fermented essential amino acids from Japan. Our lemon water contains minimal ingredients of only organic lemon powder, organic citric acid, and organic monk fruit. No natural flavors, no artificial flavors, no artificial sweeteners, no emulsifiers, no additives. This is simply that nutrition targeted for your goals. If you want to give my Be Well protein or aminos a try, or restock it if you're already loving it, take advantage of my gift for podcast listeners. Code PODCAST10 is going to get you $10 off just for being a listener. Write it down and shop with me after you listen.
I'm all about nourishing your body from the inside out, but one of the most underrated things you can do for your health isn't food or supplements, it's the air you breathe. We eat about 3 pounds of food and drink 3 liters of water a day, but we breathe 17,000 liters of air. And studies are now linking air quality to dementia, brain fog, even focus and sleep. That's why I use the Jasper Air Scrubber in my home. It's whisper quiet, beautifully designed, and it actually shows you in real time what's in your air. In testing, Jasper removed over 97% of airborne mold in just 1 hour, and users saw deeper, more restorative sleep and fewer seasonal allergies. Right now, Jasper's Black Friday sale is live, and you can get $400 off with my code BEWELL at jasper.co/BeWell. That's JASPR.co/BEWELL. They always sell out, so don't wait. Clean food, clean water, and clean air. Your body deserves all 3.
Do you do that? The laundry list is long. We're going to have all the special Santa Claus things that need to happen.
Well, in California, you don't cart like that.
Exactly. But it leads me into the next question, which is a lot of us set these very unrealistic, impossible standards for the holidays, especially with multiple kids. What's your advice for making the holidays realistic and identifying those unrealistic goals?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. The first step really is identifying them. So unrealistic or impossible standards are just regular expectations gone rogue. It's just them like going way too extreme. And what they do is they sort of hold us captive, where then we're running ourselves ragged, trying to accomplish these standards. And so at the end of the day, we end up really burned out. Or we don't meet the standards and then we feel crappy for not meeting the standards. So it's a bit of a lose-lose situation. So I know we don't have the energy during the season to do like a lot of deep work around understanding these expectations. So the simplest thing to do is to, number one, identify them. And a lot of times our expectations have pretty deep roots in our history and our family upbringing. Like maybe you had holiday experiences that felt a certain way and now you're trying to live those out. Maybe they're just from Pinterest or social media or something. But unearth them and identify them. And then you have the opportunity to really check in to say, is this actually necessary? And if you've created the anchor or kind of what you want this holiday season to feel like, you can hold those standards against that anchor. Is this standard actually moving me closer to enjoying the holiday season and feeling joyful and light and not being Scrooge by the end of it? Or is this expectation really like imprisoning me to just be on the go constantly? And so making some of these adjustments. If you don't know how to identify your unrealistic expectations, you can usually just use a prompt, like the ideal holiday season would be, or the ideal holiday season would look like. And if you sort of just imagine all the things that pop into your head, these are the expectations you're going to be holding yourself to throughout the season.
My children playing kindly together. There's so much joy, lots of giggles, special events every night. The elf is visiting every day. When I look back on my childhood, my mom, Kathy, did a phenomenal job making Christmas feel so special. But when I drilled down into what special felt like, it was, dressing up in velour and tartan and singing at my Christmas pageant, Christmas Eve Mass, being with my family, waking up and having Christmas. It feels like Christmas now starts December 1st.
Yes.
And there are reels about little elf pooping in the potty and hanging from a zip line. And we don't want our kids to feel left out, but that's a long Christmas. So can you talk to me about how you personally, as a mom, and that advice that you may give your clients or your patients, I don't know if you call them clients or patients when you're a psychologist, but what advice do you give them on drilling down to like what is important and not kind of just jumping on every trend?
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing about expectations, because as you're bringing these things up, part of the issue with expectations is when they're so different from your reality. So when expectations are here and reality is here, it's that gap between where those feelings of falling short really develop and creep in. And so you really want to work to kind of narrow that gap. So me personally, I think I've gotten too good at lowering my expectations. I think our elf on the shelf moved once last year, and our kids had questions, but they're going to be okay. I haven't done holiday cards in 5 years. I think people throw them away as soon as they get them. So why am I doing that? So I'm probably like the worst person to advise on this, because I just kind of like let them go. But I think it's really important to drill down to what do you want to feel like? Do you want to be frazzled and stressed and irritable and short by the time Christmas rolls around, or do you want to be able to sink in and enjoy it? And so every time I'm looking at all of the things that we've got going on, or I've put on my list for how to create the holiday magic, I hold it up to that match, or to that sort of criteria. Is this going to move me towards that, or is it going to actually end up burning me out and making me act like a type of mom I never wanted to be around the holiday season? So part of what you're describing of like dressing up in tartan and singing, it's just like this experiential thing, not as much, did you have an elf on the shelf that, went skiing down the stairs in the morning? Like, no, that's not the stuff probably that we're really going to cling on to, but what do the holidays feel like as a family?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, because when I think about what I want my children to experience, I want them to think that their parents were present, that they played with them, that there was ease, that they were relaxed, that they were joyful. And it is this mental load that really grates on that. And you talk a lot about that in A Better Share, your second book. 2 books in 3 years, by the way. Absolute rock star. But in that second book, you really dive into the mental load. And I'd love for you to explain it here, because it's that kind of running tally to-do list where I'm constantly telling my husband, Chris, I have so many tabs open. It's like the Christmas cards, the elf on the shelf, all these unrealistic expectations. But layer on top of that real life, right? Mm-hmm. 2 boys, both in baseball, both in flag football. The weeks are, completely overscheduled, but they're loving it. So like, what do we do? Like, how do we really understand what the mental load is and share it?
Okay, so there's a few men here, so I'm going to give a good old definition of this, because it can be helpful. So the mental load is a seemingly never-ending running to-do list we carry around in our heads that has 2 major components. The first is the majority of tasks are invisible. So that piece of it makes it hard to hand things off. It makes it hard to receive appreciation around. It makes it hard even to like understand one another when all these things are kind of just happening automatically or in the dark. The second component is that it takes up cognitive real estate. What this means is that it crowds out space in our brains for other things, like patience, peace, finding rest, getting in the mood for sex. All of this stuff requires mental capacity that the mental load tends to crowd out. So everybody has one. I remember talking with my husband about this years and years ago. We'd go back and forth on this. He's like, I have one too. Of course you do. Everybody has one. I have a 12-year-old daughter. She has a mental load. I see it working in her. But when it comes to home and family life, when we look at the research time and time again, we find that women carry a disproportionate amount of the mental load in home and family life. And so it can often be a source of resentment and disconnect in relationships. So can I give the in the weeds?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to give the in the weeds definition. Because I think this is really what helps to clarify it for people. So if we can visualize 3 circles, kind of like a Venn diagram. The mental load is made up of 3 types of tasks. So the first is the physical. So if you ever have talked to your partner about the mental load, this is what they think it is. Doing the dishes, emptying the dishwasher. They're like, hey babe, I emptied the dishwasher, are you good? We're like, no. That's not, I've done that 3 times today already. It's not just the physical tasks. That's actually sometimes enjoyable because you feel accomplished. Then the other circle is the mental tasks. And so that's making a list of things that we've done. It's thinking through the steps required to accomplish something. A lot of our work life is the mental tasks. The third, this is the most important one, is the emotional tasks. So the emotional labor of home and family life. So I'm going to give a definition, just a bit of a mouthful, but the emotional labor is the seemingly never-ending cause and effect calculations that we're constantly making to try to maximize positive experiences of the people we love. So the emotional labor of the holiday season is next level, because we're like, how do we make sure our kids remember these Christmases for the rest of their lives? How do we make sure that they feel this magic and it's everything they've ever dreamed of? It feels like the stakes are really high with the emotional labor. The emotional labor is really hard to hand off, because if we don't trust that the person we're handing it off to does the same cause and effect calculations in the same way, then we're like, we gotta keep doing it because we can't trust you to handle it. It requires a deep knowing of our family, and so you can't really hire it out, and it follows you everywhere. You could be working full time and be whiplashed out of the present and back into this worry around this emotional labor. So the last point I'll make is that at the intersection of these 3 circles is something I call the triple threat. And the majority of tasks around home and family life occur at the intersection, which means it takes effort from the physical, mental, and emotional domains. So if you go to your significant other and you're like, hey, I need help, and they're like, make me a list, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's not just a list of things, because every item on that list unpacks to contain energy, effort, and heart from these 3 areas. I think one of the best ways to give an example is dinner. Dinner, you're like, whatever, make dinner. Every day I'm shocked that I gotta make dinner that night. I never defrost things on time. It's just like, why do I have to keep doing this? But dinner is something that contains effort from all 3 domains. So the physical is the shopping, the cooking, the chopping, all the things, doing the dishes. The mental is thinking about what you need from the store. And then the emotional is like, okay, how am I gonna make something with enough nutritional value that everybody will eat, that fills them up, and that doesn't have everybody begging for a bar at bedtime? It's this constant and ongoing effort that becomes really, really draining, and where couples tend to just not quite understand together.
I have been a longtime fan of Costarina, a Mediterranean wellness brand devoted to fresh, simple, high-quality ingredients you can trust. Their products aren't just delicious, they're genuinely good for you, made with 3 or fewer easy-to-pronounce ingredients. I always keep my kitchen stocked with their award-winning extra virgin olive oil. It's bold, peppery, and tastes exactly how real olive oil should. I also love their organic snacking olives, their aged balsamic, and their bright crushed fruit vinegars, which is great as a mocktail and for balancing blood sugar before a big meal. But here's the best part. Costarina makes the perfect gift. It's truly my go-to for holidays and hostess gifts, you name it. Bring a bottle of olive oil from Costarina instead of a bottle of wine to a friend's dinner. And this year, they've made gifting even easier with 5 stunning holiday gift sets beautifully packaged in Mediterranean-inspired boxes. No wrapping required. My personal favorite is the extra virgin duo gift set. And trust me, these will sell out fast. So stock up for yourself, grab a few of your favorite gifts at costarina.com/bewell, or use my code Kelly for 15% off your first order. Again, that's costarina.com/bewell, and go straight to their website and use the code Kelly at checkout.
I am so excited to share with you guys an incredible scientific breakthrough to support our long-term health and wellness. Meet Fatty 15, powered by C15, the world's first essential fatty acid discovered in over 90 years. Scientists are calling it the longevity nutrient, and for good reason.
Fatty 15 was founded by Dr. Stephanie Van Watson, who uncovered C15 while studying aging dolphins. Her research revealed something incredible. C15 works by strengthening our cells, improving our mitochondrial function, and protecting us against damaging free radicals. The result? Better long-term metabolic, liver, and heart health. Fatty 15 is powered by pure vegan-friendly form of C15 and an odd-chain saturated fatty acid that's more stable than most polyunsaturated fats. That means it resists oxidation, staying potent in the bottle and in your body. It turns out that many of us are deficient in C15, which results in weaker cells that make less energy and quit working earlier than they should. All of that makes us age faster, sleep poorly, and feel sluggish. But by replenishing our cells with that essential C15 nutrient, the only ingredient in Fatty 15 effectively repairs our cells and restores our long-term health. Plus, it comes with a gorgeous reusable glass jar and refill capsules shipped quarterly right to your door. Fatty 15 is on a mission to replenish your C15 levels and restore your long-term health. You can get an additional 15% off their 90-day subscription starter kit by going to fatty15.com/Kelly15 and using the code Kelly15 at checkout.
It feels heavy even listening to it. Now you're all stressed out. I mean, it is, and it's all stemming from this place of love where you love your kids so much, and you love your husband so much, you love your family so much, you want everyone to have this amazing experience all year long, but it is specifically pressurized over the holidays. And I think it can cause some contention when you start to ask for help or when you don't feel seen for the invisible tasks, and you can be met with defensiveness or what you call the deficit default.
Yeah.
So can we talk about strategies to manage that and make sure that we're communicating in a space of clarity and love so that we're met with the support that we're looking for?
Yeah.
And kind of like what you see, the norm is for couples and what causes that communication breakdown.
So I'm going to zoom out really quickly and explain something that I think can help set the stage for this a little bit. I'm a big believer that in our relationships, there are just a lot of common trends. If you got a huge group of men and a huge group of women, and you talked about what are your complaints, they're going to really start to be the same things. And so there are a lot of things in our relationships that are just kind of differences in our worldviews and how we function, that when we understand these differences, it depersonalizes some of the things that feel really painful. So we can start to be oh, my partner does this to me, or my partner does that. And it's well, maybe it's a difference that we just need to come together and navigate a little bit differently. So, for example, and this one shows up a lot in the holiday season, is that for the most part, women are really socialized to self-sacrifice for the preservation of our relationships. And so because of this, we are held to a different standard around how our kids look, how our kids behave, what our house looks like, what they're eating, what's in their lunches, all this stuff tends to come back on moms. I remember one night, our son was going to youth group and it was raining and it was cold, it's Southern California, cold, but I was hey buddy, put a coat on. I don't want to wear a coat. Oh, come on man, just put a coat on. He goes, Mom, I'm not going to wear it, so I'm going to lose it, and then you're going to be mad at me for losing my coat. Okay, well, I appreciate your insight, so fine, but the reality is when he goes to youth group that night, the women working at it are going to be why did your mom put you in a coat? They're not going to be this dad's really dropping the ball. So I'm saying this to say that because of this, because of how we're sort of judged or held to a different standard around our relationships and our children and our home and our family, we tend to have higher expectations. Sometimes our expectations are sort of hinted that's a problem. You need to chill out. You need to lower your expectations. You're doing too much. But part of it is being driven by the way that we are viewed as society, as well as what our responsibilities are. So we're prioritized something totally different often than our husbands and male counterparts. So they're often socialized to provide and protect financial and physical security. We've talked before about, sometimes that's not the case, or there's a reverse in roles, but they tend to prioritize different things. So sometimes we sort of like butt heads around this issue, around the expectation issue, the minimization of things, when really it's just we're prioritizing different things. And it's wonderful how that fits together if we can appreciate what both people are contributing to the relationship instead of minimizing it or kind of dismissing it. So I can speak to the defensiveness.
Yeah, so I want you to give me an example of what it might look like between a couple when you're trying to unload your mental load and you're met with defensiveness or that deficit default. Like what does that response look like from a partner, and how do we take it on like head first?
Yeah, so this is like the not so fun part of talking about the mental load is if you're met with defensiveness. So if you are new to having this conversation around the mental load with your partner, I don't really recommend doing it around the holidays. Maybe wait, just instead talk about the holiday specific mental load and see if you can navigate that a little bit better. But one of the things to try to hedge the defensiveness is to position the mental load as the shared enemy in your relationship. So as you all know, modern family life is absolutely insane. It's relentless. The amount of responsibilities we're trying to navigate is like way more in many ways than two people can do. And so if you position it as, the responsibilities that we're trying to handle as a family and as a couple are so overwhelming, and I don't like how I'm feeling. You probably don't like, you probably notice my intensity and my stress. You might not like that. I want to talk together how we can navigate this a little bit differently as a team. So when you position it that way, it sets you up for more success. If it doesn't work, if you're met with defensiveness, there's several strategies that you can go to, and the deficit default you're referring to is the tendency for sometimes partners to immediately assume they're not doing enough. So you say, oh, I could use a little bit more help. Oh, I'm never doing enough for you. That's the deficit default. So there's a couple things you can do. One, before you have the conversation, you can try to hedge the defensiveness. I need to talk to you about something. It's really important to me. I worked up a lot of energy to bring this conversation up. Nobody likes having these conversations. I'm worried you're going to get defensive. Do you think you can handle it? I'm not trying to be manipulative with this, but it can be helpful to sort of get buy-in beforehand. So if they get defensive, you can say, you said you weren't, but now you are, so what's going on? Or it's going to create a pause in them, and hopefully they switch gears and don't respond with defensiveness. If they do, and so now you're in it, they're defensive, and you're like, what the heck am I supposed to do? There's a lot of strategies, but one thing that is really powerful, and I learned this like in my training as a therapist, is you switch the conversation from the content, which is like the specifics of what you're talking about, to the process, which is how you're talking about things. A lot of times in our arguments, we end up getting in the weeds. So we start arguing like every little, oh, I don't do that, give me an example. And then you're like, ugh. So then you give the example, and then they argue that was an exception. And so now you gotta conjure up another example, and now you're like way far from the original conversation. You don't even know your point. You just like, let's just be done with this. This is exhausting. So when you switch to when you switch to process, it pulls you out of getting into the weeds, and you're gonna talk about how we communicate. So if you're in the middle of an argument, switching to process would sound like, okay, let's pause. I'm noticing right now when I'm saying these things, you're starting to get kind of like defensive. So, and this is the second part of it, you ask for clarification. Can you tell me what you're hearing me say right now? I wanna make sure you're hearing me correctly. So that can help to kind of shift the conversation so you can get to a more productive place. One other quick tip, I could go on for a long time about tips for defensiveness, but one other quick tip is to regularly incorporate fact-checking in your conversations. We are so good at making the worst and wrong assumptions about what our partner is saying, what our partner is doing, what they're thinking. And so we interact with those assumptions more than the actual conversation happening in reality. And so when you can pause the conversation and be like, whoa, I'm thinking that you mean this, is that right? You slow the conversation down, you allow for in-the-moment corrections and alterations, and again, help reset the conversation and get you back on track.
That's great advice. Now, when we really want to unload our mental load, what's the plan to do that? Because I want to have that productive communication. I don't want to be met with defensiveness, and we want to be on the same team. It's this big load of responsibilities we both have. You talk about dividing responsibilities, increasing clarity, and reducing resentment. Is there a strategy for that?
Yeah, so let's talk holiday specific. I'm just going to get really practical. So for holiday specific, I would come together and I'd be like, okay, holidays are upon us. Every year I kind of have a meltdown near the end, so we're going to do this differently this year, and we're going to work together. I would sit down and I would write out, do a shared note in your phone. It's like so simple. Write down everything that you've got going on. All the presents. I'm sure I've had a list of present ideas for each of my kids since last Christmas, It's just an ongoing thing. Share all of these things, get on the same page, and talk about who's going to do what. Think about things like, what are you each good at? What do you like to do? And talk about in this conversation, what are the expectations for how these things are done? If there's like a specific way you like something handled, talk about it in that conversation. And then since you have a shared note, you can see updates, check things off as they get done. Just be very practical during this holiday season without getting too much in the weeds of like all of the emotional labor of everything. Instead, just try to map it out and divide and conquer. It can also be helpful to set up weekly check-ins leading up to the holidays. So how are we doing on our list? Do we need to make any adjustments? You said you were going to handle that. You didn't handle that. Like, what's going on? Let's make sure we're making progress and work through it together. This is going to protect you. I keep saying this, started this way, but from future resentment later as you get closer to the holidays. I know I've been there in the past where like my husband jumps in and he's a great wrapper of gifts. So he thinks he's doing all the things by wrapping gifts on Christmas Eve with me. And I'm like, buddy, I've been working for months here. Like, you have no idea. So I'm like having to manage that resentment on top of the exhaustion I'm already feeling from doing all the things. So protect your relationship from future resentment by having these conversations now.
That's great. Now, when conflict and disconnect does arise, which happens during the holidays, it's inevitably going to happen, what advice do you have, or what are your favorite ways to repair with either a partner or a child when it's just heated and you're like, just get a nursing, we gotta go to the pageant? I never do that.
Me either. Repair. Okay, so repair is incredibly important. Obviously, we're all, most people are pretty bad at it. Nobody really teaches you how to repair properly. I think we're all out here trying to raise emotionally intelligent kids, so we're working hard on teaching repair. So I'll just give you a few pointers for how to do it. What I find a lot with couples, and then even with my kids are now 9 and 12, which is crazy. So they're more, articulate with their pushback. But a lot of times people don't want to repair because they feel like they did something either by accident or their intentions were good. Like, I didn't do anything wrong. Why am I going to apologize? Why am I going to repair? So something that I have been working to teach our kids, and I've had the conversation with my husband in the past, which is that there's a difference between intentions and impact. So it's just like if you're walking down the hall and you bump somebody accidentally, you still say sorry, because the impact was that you bumped them. So when talking to kids about repair, I'll sort of highlight that difference. Maybe I believe you. I believe your intention was good, your heart was good, but you still, hurt your sister's feelings. So I'd like you to repair for the impact that it had on her. So if you think about almost like a formula for an apology, I think another thing is people will say, I don't know who these people are, these social media people will say you can't have a but in an apology, but I think also sometimes you want to explain, what happened. And so it feels really hard to apologize and we can't give our side. So it's just kind of like where you place the but. So for an apology, you want to say, I'm sorry for what I did, the impact I had, and then you'll say, part of why this happened was because, so you can sort of justify or explain your intention, And they say, however, I understand that so then you finish with impact. I understand that this still hurt you, and I'm really sorry for how this came across. So it's a bit more complicated, but this is the one that I'm working on with our kids. This is how I apologize with my husband, and he has gotten better at apologizing with me. Other things that I do that, depending on the ages of your kids, is I open it up to alternative ways of repairing. So sometimes they'll write a letter. Sometimes that's easier for people to write it down than it is to actually say it. Sometimes it'll be like, well, you need to show them that you're sorry. Maybe that's getting them a snack or doing something to care for them. So it's okay to think outside of the box when repairing. I've written letters to my kids I have needed to repair because they are more willing to sit and receive it that way than me just kind of blabbing at them. So I think we got to expand how we teach repair.
It's like an impact sandwich.
Yes, it is an
Impact, but my intention was, but I also am recognizing that impact.
Yes.
I like the alternative ways of repair because I think there's some shame and guilt when you hurt someone unintentionally, and the pressure cooker of the holidays can really exacerbate that. And for a lot of us, we have multiple, you're at a Catholic school, lots of children, multiple children and families, and we do, as parents, we want that joy around the holidays. We don't want sibling rivalry. It can really rear its ugly head on those special days when, you know, everybody's getting an electronic gift and everybody's getting an outfit and everyone's getting like a buildable toy, and you're trying your best to make it even and fair, but also specific for that child and what they love. And inevitably, it's hard for children, and that jealousy can rear up, and then that rivalry can really be a part of the experience. How can we manage that with our children and ensure that they feel seen and we aren't exacerbating the problem? Am I doing that by making everything fair? Maybe.
It's exhausting. I don't know if you're exacerbating it, but it's exhausting. Some things that I have implemented with our kids is so to create almost like a sibling cohesion instead of rivalry is that I'll try to come up with as many opportunities for them to align together against my husband and I. So I'll make it like them versus us as many times. So if we're playing a game, kids versus parents, things like that can help to build cohesion instead of division. Something else that I'll do, so this is not talking about the gifts, I can get to that, but sometimes, so I've had to take our daughter occasionally on venting walks. So we'll go for a walk and we will complain about my son together. And this might be a controversial approach, but sometimes, you know, we're all annoying. If we're honest, like we're all annoying. And my son, he's awesome, but he's a highly like sensitive kid and he takes a lot of space up. And our daughter's like tries to be easy peasy, so it's obvious that sometimes he takes up a lot of space, and you know he'll vent about her too. But sometimes just letting your kids, getting a little bit of time with them, like discharge about their brother or their sister, actually is like really cathartic. And then she always comes back, and it's like everything's been reset. They get along. So usually I don't like really like. I don't add too much to these conversations. I'm just like, oh man, your brother. And then she's like, yeah, and then it's like done. Like I don't have to say anything else. She kind of rolls with it. And I'll just validate, I'm like, it's hard. Like he takes up a lot of room or this or that, and it's usually, that's enough. And that has been a really helpful strategy for us time and time again. With gifts, also every year we'll take them to go shopping for the other. So it's like my son shopping to pick something out for his sister and then vice versa. They usually get so excited to give these gifts to each other. And it just builds, you know, thoughtfulness and thinking about the other. Another line that we use a lot in our family is that things aren't necessarily equal, but they're always fair. So like somebody might get a really big gift that costs a lot of money and the other one has more little gifts. But, you know, everything is fair in our family. We really take that into account, but it doesn't mean that everything looks the same. So we have to remember that differentiation.
I love that. It's so much on us to take care of all of the logistics around the holidays and make sure that it's that Venn diagram of those three circles you're talking about, the physical, the mental, and the emotional. And it feels like there's no space left for us. And this is that time that I've seen clients in the past say to me, it's been great working with you. And I'm like, it's October 15th. They're like, I'll see you in the new year. And you kind of just throw the towel in. You're like, how am I going to take care of myself, get to my workouts, like eat the way that I want to eat, make space for myself, whether that's hitting a yoga class or, you know, going for a run or a venting walk, whatever it is. Like, who are we venting to? And how are we preserving our own self-care during a time when it's really hard to say no?
Yeah, I tend to be a big picture self-care person instead of being like, oh, you know, get your manicure and take a bath and take a walk. Like, I think it's really important that you learn what moves the needle for you. So maybe those things do, or maybe what moves the needle for you is like lifting weights or something like that, something completely different, or having coffee with a friend. But it's really important during the holiday season to regularly almost like self-scan how you are doing, and then actually take some action to take care of yourself. Where are your deficiencies? Where are you feeling like you're kind of getting a little vulnerable, like you're getting close to the edge? You need to refuel a little bit. And so regularly check in. Women are really good at completely disassociating from ourselves. Like we kind of move through life like completely disconnected from what we need, and sometimes even who we are. So then when somebody's like, hey, you know, how are you? You're like, I don't know. And it's like we can't even connect to that because we're not really thinking about it. Or if you get that minute alone and you're like, oh, I have this time. I don't even know how to spend it because I don't even know what I need. I'm so disconnected from my needs. So part of what's important is starting to build back that connection to yourself so that it's not so hard to access what you need, and to be able to kind of like do micro sort of doses of meaningful care for you that fills you up and that moves the needle.
That's easy for me. I mean, like I could get rid of all the manicures and all the things and just be like, if I got to one yoga class a week during all of December or through Thanksgiving to the end of the year, I'd be like, I'm a rock star. Or I would feel reset, you know, and maybe you're lowering those expectations or the quantity, but staying consistent enough to like have a taste of what that feels like so that you're not losing it over that period of time. When it comes to like the guilt, the parental guilt around trying to just, I don't want to say make it perfect, but where we think we're falling short and do a great job and make sure it's great. How do we manage that like shame and guilt that we feel when we are constantly missing the mark?
So guilt is something that shows up when we feel like we violated some moral standard. So when it comes to this type of guilt, there's really these two types. So there's the deserved guilt, which is like that I violated a moral standard and I should feel guilty. Guilt gets a bad rep, but it's actually a really important emotion and really important experience because it prompts us to change the way that we are acting in our lives. So if you like, I lost it on my kids a couple weeks ago. I felt horrible, and that prompted me to do really meaningful repair. So that's productive. This type of guilt is an undeserved guilt. This is when we are violating not some moral standard, but some unrealistic or impossible standard that is just like, we can't even meet it. And the unfortunate part is sometimes when we're striving to meet these impossible standards, we end up burning ourselves out to such a degree that we act in a way that we actually deserve to feel guilty because we have like lost it on our kids and we've run ourselves ragged. So I think it kind of goes back to the beginning. We were talking about these unrealistic standards. We have to address those. We have to dial them down a little bit. We have to make adjustments. Are these really important? Are these really in line with who we want to be and how this holiday season should work? And really start to adjust them so that they're more in line with our reality. We need to bring our standards more in line with our reality so we're going to experience this undeserved guilt less and less. I'm a big believer in like you can call it a mantra or whatever, like a one-liner that helps gather you in the moment when these things start to creep up. Because sometimes we're moving through life so quickly, we can't like access all this background work So if we can come up with like one sort of holiday mantra to help us dial it down and really be in the moment, that can be really helpful. So it might be to love people best, I need my rest or something. Because the reality is sometimes we self-sacrifice so much for the people we love that we end up resenting and being not our best selves to the people we loved. So it's incredibly important that we learn how to make some of these adjustments so we can show up as the person we want to be this holiday season for the people we love the most and for ourselves, so we get to enjoy it.
Oh, yeah. I think my mantra would be to be present and peaceful. And so I absolutely need to get with Chris and be like, here are all the things that we have on the holiday list.
Sorry, Chris.
So can you just cross some of these off for me so that I can be that person that I want to be? Because that's the disconnect. That's the rub for me. It's like, I do push for this magic that my mom had created for me, but the magic of the 80s looks a lot different from the magic of 2025 holiday season. So really getting granular about like what we can split up and what we can cross off feels like really liberating.
Yeah. Can I add one more thing for couples to talk about?
Yes,
Okay.
we'd love that.
I know I'm like taking over this one, but I one more part of the conversation that I think you should all have as you get into the holiday season is how you want to be supported when you're stressed out. So instead of being like, I'm just not going to be stressed out this holiday season, like we're going to nail it, that's not really realistic. You're going to all at some point feel stressed out. What I've noticed in my work with couples, in my own relationship, is that when women tend to get stressed out, we tend to have an intensity about us. I call it go mode, but honestly, it just freaks my husband out. I'm like scary, I'm intense, I'm stressed. It's like a lot. And so we've had to have conversations in our own marriage. Okay, because what he will do is he'll like hide from me. He'll be like, oh, I'm just gonna stay out of her way. I don't want any of this directed at me. I don't know if I did something I'm unaware of. And so he distances, and ultimately what I'm needing the most is for him to approach me. Maybe it's like, give me a hug, encourage me, whatever it might be, do something to help. And so talk about what you need when you feel stressed out. So it's very clear to the both of you how you can show up for one another when one of those moments inevitably arises. Because if they don't take care of you in the way you need, or you don't take care of them in the way that they need, that's just like one other opportunity for a disagreement or disconnect over the holidays. That just take it off your list. Have a plan for that.
That was a great ad. And I want to dive just one little bit deeper into relationships and couples, because you're really good at preserving the relationship. I think a lot of authors in the mental load space, there's a lot of blame on the men, and that the women are carrying it all. And I think you do a really good job creating scripts and dialogues and having strategies for couples to work together. Can you talk a little bit about how your view is different and what your goals are for couples when they go through your courses or read your books?
Yeah, so have any of you learned about the mental load online on social media? Yeah, so when I consume content on social media around the mental load, one of the biggest sort of common threads is that it is the husband's fault. That if they just did more, then we wouldn't be in the state that we're in. And I'm not saying that that's untrue. I think that part of the solution is that we need our partners to step into more initiative taking. We often need actually more expressions of appreciation so that we know that what we add to our family is valued by them. But I don't believe that approaching this topic in a way that is critical of men actually will move the needle in a meaningful way, because we have to invite them into the conversation. They have a mental load too. They have experiences that maybe we're not living, and an entirely different worldview that's important to understand and appreciate. And so that's really how my view differs, is that it really works, my book works to invite men to the table. Let's talk about this together. Again, like I was saying earlier, because just the world we're living in, it's just added so many more responsibilities on our plate than even our parents' generation. So what we're navigating together is like just out of control amount of responsibilities and pressures. life is expensive. Like, there's just so many factors to contend with. And so how can we as a team navigate this together? And so that's actually quite different than the majority of approaches out there.
And that's why I love your books and your courses and your content. Thank you, Dr. Morgan Cutlip, for being here, for sharing your expertise with our community. It was a wonderful morning. I appreciate you so much. Where can people follow along if they want to learn more? Where can they get your books? Where can they take your courses?
Thank you for having me. It's just so nice to be here. So you can find me on Instagram. My handle is Dr. Morgan Cutlip. It's DR. My website is the same, drmorgancutlip.com. My books are on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you buy books. A Better Share, which is for couples, and then Love Your Kids Without Losing Yourself, which is a book for moms. I have a new course that has been actually gotten just like really great feedback. It's called The Brief, and it's a course for men actually, and it explains the menstrual load and to them, and exactly how to care for their partner in a targeted way. I think sometimes it's confusing what we want and what we're asking for, so it tries to kind of bridge that miscommunication gap, and so you can find that on my website.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Be Well by Kelly LeVeque podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a review in your favorite podcast app and subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. We're also excited to share that full-length video episodes are now on YouTube and Spotify, so you can watch along as you listen. The best way to support me and the show is by sharing it with your friends and family. Your recommendations make all the difference. This is a Wellness Loud production produced by Drake Peterson. The video is recorded by Luke Rodriguez and edited by Jesse Trout. Sound mixing is by Mike Fry. See you next time. The content of this show is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for individual medical or mental health advice and does not constitute a provider-patient relationship. As always, talk to your doctor or healthcare team first.